Hi again, this is your host Adnan Rafiq, Exchange IT Pro. In this episode 6, 2018, I'm going to talk about centralized transport and what are the scenarios you can think of you will need to set up centralized transport and how does it work. So it all depends on your business requirement, the deployment types you have, what kind of deployment types you have. Of course, we have on premises, but let's say if your business, if you sign up a tenant, a fresh new tenant for Office 365, and you already have your email system working on some hosted platform, and you want to migrate from there, in that scenario, you don't really need to do anything centralized transport. The only scenario is about the hybrid configuration wizard, and only the case where you have some legal, regulatory, or compliance need to set up your email in that way. But if you want to move from your own premises exchange, whether it's 2003, 2007, 2010, 2013, or even 2016, if you want to move from on premises completely to Office 365, then again, you don't need centralized transport setup. So, where do you really need it? Basically, it depends whether not size of the company, but again, the type of the business you are into and some legal requirements you have. Your email must flow from your on premises environment so you can have better control. That could be one of the reason, or another reason you might have already invested a ton of money already on your on premises deployment, on premises anti-spam gateways, and you have a large setup and you don't think so you're going to go to online for a couple of years and you want to run those on premises for the mail gateways. That's another requirement. So those are the main business or like requirement and how you're technology dependent in terms of how much money you have invested. And plus also sometimes the control, you want to have the control um, while you're on premises. You do still get control in 365 and EOP, but again, those are the differentiator. So imagine you need centralized transport. So we'll look into the scenarios. What are the scenarios? So one of the scenario is, so there will be four scenarios basically. So one of the scenarios you have hybrid configuration setup configured, but you have centralized transport disabled. What it means, you even though have your hybrid configuration on premises and exchange online mailboxes, but when you send receive email to outside world, it goes through exchange online protection. It goes to your Office 365 transport server. So in that case, you don't need centralized transport, and in Office 365 takes care of that. And when you run the hybrid configuration wizard, you just specify you don't need of centralized transport enable, and Microsoft hybrid configuration wizard pretty much takes care of everything in the background. So what are the other scenarios where you think you will need to have centralized transport and you need to understand? So we left with only two scenarios: receiving email and sending email. So let's see what are the scenarios. So here is one of the scenario where an internet user ABC or XYZ send an email to Julie at Contoso.com and CC to David at Contoso.com. So in that scenario, if you have configured your hybrid configuration wizard with centralized transport enabled or centralized transport is configured, while you run that setup for hybrid configuration wizard, your MX records are pointed towards your on-premises mail gateways, or it could be third-party mail gateway in the cloud, whichever the way you have set it up. The points to um, those in the internet, and from there it comes to exchange server. If you look at a user send email to this and MX get resolved in number two to your exchange server here, and from there message gets delivered to your local from your gateway to the exchange server here, and it does the delivery of the mail. For example, Julie in this case is a mailbox on premises in your on-premise Exchange 2016, for example. So her mail gets delivered right away on your own premises. But at the same time, David's mailbox is on Office 365, is an Exchange online mailbox. So when query is done against on the global catalog server, David's mailbox also has additional SMTP, or which is configured on the mailbox, where it says in the that this user also has David at contos.com plus global catalog is received at contos.mail on Microsoft.com. So which is a hybrid configuration routing address. So the mail then will be forwarded from your on-prem Exchange server to EOP, which receives your messages sent to Exchange Online using a send connector configured to use TLS. It's all encrypted, secure between your on-premises and Exchange Online. And after the lookup, it finds out this mailbox is residing in Office 365 Exchange Online. Then message get forwarded to Office 365, and this is where it gets delivered. So this is basically any incoming messages coming to your organization via your own premises uh, routing setup. That's how it works. So everything you have is under your control, under configure on your mail gateway. So you're responsible for managing everything, which pretty much you're doing it today. That's why you have to set up your configuration based on that for on premises or centralized transport. Now look at the other scenarios. When a user sends email to internet, especially when a user is, let's say if you're on premises, it will just go traditionally. But what if a user is Exchange Online user? So in this case, um, user sends an email. For example, David, again in this case, has a mailbox in Exchange Online sends a message to Aaron at cpndl.com, and Exchange Online then scans the message for viruses and send the message to EOP. And there, when it gets to the EOP finds out, oh, this internet-bound messages has to go through your own premise server because you already set up that centralized transport. So then from there, this message gets routed to your on-premise Exchange server instead of sending directly to the internet. So that's the big differentiator here. So it gets routed to your on-premise Exchange server, which is again on TLS, which is an encrypted connection between on-premises and Office 365. So I emphasize again, that's how it's routed from your UP to on-premise Exchange server. And then again, on-premise Exchange server does all your, let's say, uh, virus checking and all that stuff. And from there, on-premise Exchange server do the NS lookup, and then how it gets routed to the internet, the way your email works today. So that's how it is, and that's how the centralized transport works. Um, and then there are more ways why you want to have, or what are the business requirements, as I mentioned, because if you have your on premises policies, DLP policies, you have your on premise white list of domains, you name anything where you managed. So everything is still on premises, so you can force your company's policies when you have centralized transport configured this way. So those are the benefits again and controls you get when you have on premises. You don't have to do all the migration of policies, and something may not, you don't take a risk will break or work. But again, as long as it's set up this way, you don't have to do anything. It will pretty much work the way it's going to work today. So in a nutshell, that was centralized transport with Office 365 and Exchange 2016. It works with previous version as well, but we are being talking about the latest greatest version of Exchange. I hope you like this episode and keep following me on Exchange IT Pro on my Twitter handle, and subscribe to my video for more interesting video in the future. I hope you liked it, and thank you so much.